All right, fans, it's now time for the moment you've all been waiting for. Our special guest is a Fordham University alum who would take on play-by-play commentary roles with several organizations in the early stage of his career, from Siena College to the Hudson Valley Renegades, and eventually, where he is now, the New York Yankees on WFAN. And it was at WFAN in 2018 where his professional journey reached new heights as a talk show host, update anchor, and now the host of the New York Yankees post-game show. In 2024, the Long Island native would become a regular panelist on SNY's Baseball Night in New York and would add college basketball on Fox Sports to his play-by-play resume. He is a recipient of 5 awards from the New York State Broadcasters Association and the Associated Press. And now, at the plate, Emmanuel Berbari. Emmanuel, how are you doing today, pal?
Rich, thanks for having me. Quite the intro, so I appreciate being at the plate with you right now.
Well, listen, before we get into it, we got a lot to talk about. We'll talk about your career, the New York Yankees as a whole. They've been playing good baseball, maybe not so much this past weekend, but overall, great baseball for the New York Yankees. We'll talk about that. But before we get down to business, I got to know, because I read your profile, and this really stuck out to me. You're an iced coffee guy, just like me. I love my morning, afternoon, early evening iced coffee, just like you. There we go. We're gonna plug Starbucks, even though they don't necessarily
they don't
deserve
sponsor the show, but this is a visual representation of, there's an off day, so I'll admit that I slept in a few more hours than usual and have an iced coffee in my hand already.
So I gotta ask the perfect question. You're holding. You just read off the receipt there. Hopefully they spelled your name right. What's been the go-to order?
So I need to coordinate myself here. I got the venti cold brew, blonde shot, extra ice. Now the backstory to this is I used to be big into half and half and milk in my coffee. I would always balance it out, and I used to be way too into it, where people would look at me like, "What are you drinking? A milkshake? Are you actually drinking coffee, or are you drinking milk?" And I used to look at them like they had 10 heads, but they would look at me like I had 10 heads. And then eventually, what happened is my family went on a vacation, and my brother, pure black coffee drinker. And I thought that was insane. I said, how could you drink black coffee that's so bitter? But it's really an acquired taste. Within 4 days on vacation together, he got me into black coffee. Like, my taste buds readjusted into being a black coffee drinker. So I really tell anybody, it only takes you 3-4 days. And now I'm only a black cold brew with a blonde shot, and then my day is off and running.
See, I've been convinced by a lot of folks. I communicate to a lot of folks on Yankees Twitter. They know I'm a big coffee guy, and they're always telling me your diet is just simply unhealthy. Switch to black coffee. I'm slowly adjusting. I've added like flavor to my coffee, like unsweetened flavor, like blueberry. Something still fun, but I still know that's not. We're kind of losing the gist of ordering black coffees to begin with. But no, I had to bring that up because I'm a massive coffee guy, and again,
it's a big part of life. Big part of life. Yeah. So how can we dodge around that? That's a huge part of every day. When you're a big coffee person, your day doesn't jumpstart without it. So we got to make it part of the conversation.
Correct. Again, not a sponsor show. America runs on Dunkin'. Manuel runs on Dunkin'. And honestly, your career in broadcast has been off and running itself. So let's talk about the broadcast industry. Not a path well traveled. We both know this. Networking, tons of networking involved. Highly competitive field. As early as you can recall in your broadcast journey, when did you start convincing yourself that, I could do this thing?
Really good question, because I think we all go into it with open eyes and a little naivete, thinking we can do it. And it takes a lot of confidence in yourself and your ability to actually think, I can pursue a career where people want to watch me or listen to me. So naturally, that takes some confidence early on. You have to have some wild, open-minded confidence. And I think that stems back to high school, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, but a couple of my friends were launching a live video streaming program at Harbor Fields High School, where I went to school back on Long Island. And I didn't know what I wanted to do for work at that point. But freshman year of high school, I helped them out, more wanting to fit in with my friends than anything else, and stumbled upon this journey. I called one game, and it was in that moment. People talk about their aha moments. It was in that moment where it's not that I realized, okay, this is exactly what I want to do, but I realized this is really cool. And when I watch games, I'm as focused on the announcers and what they're saying as I am on the game itself. And if those two things are equal, you might be onto something. Like that might be a real interest of yours if you're as interested in what the announcers are saying as the play that's going on in front of you on the field, the high level competition. So I just wanted to absorb as much information as I could. I did as many games as I could. Reps is everything, as we know in this business, and applying yourself and trying to get better. And I went to a broadcasting camp at Chaminade High School, where I didn't go to high school, but it was right down the road, essentially. And the guy who ran that camp went to Fordham University. He was an alum. And he introduced me to Fordham, everything I know about the school. And from that point forward, we talk about this blind confidence, even though you got to channel that a little bit, especially when you're young and trying to figure things out. I was so tunnel vision focused. I'm like, I'm going to Fordham. This is how I'm going to make it happen. And, things don't necessarily work out that way. So I'm very fortunate that I did go to Fordham, and I have been lucky enough to have some opportunities. But, most stories would say I had the tunnel vision of I'm going to Fordham, and then life takes you in a different direction. But I just was so focused on making that a reality and then hopefully making the career a reality. But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for people like that early on steering me in the right direction, and several other people who have been so generous with their time, steering me in certain directions since I've become a professional in this business. So yeah, that's the short of it, but it goes back to that freshman year high school basketball game.
Right. And you mentioned Fordham University, another voice of the New York Yankees, Michael Kay, product of the school. Throughout the early stages of your broadcast career, were there any broadcasters that you found inspiration in that you channeled during calling collegiate games, and even up to now with the New York Yankees?
Yeah, I think Michael Kay is an easy answer. I grew up watching him, listening to him, so he was an idol of mine. So the fact I've met him and worked alongside, like when I walked through the Yankee Stadium booth area, press box area, I see Michael Kay, and we're friendly with one another. That to me is still surreal. So he was one of them. Mike Breen was one of them, another Fordham alum, voice of the NBA Finals, voice of the Knicks, and there are so many others. Ryan Rucco, who does a lot of Yankee work and NBA work. Justin Shackle, who I've gotten a chance to work with on the radio side and in a lot of different Yankee circles. But he was probably the first person when I was in college and was trying to expand my horizons and get better. One of the first person to listen to my tape. And that's so essential when you're starting out, having people who you admire and respect the way they do it. And you listen to them and you think, oh, this is what I want to model myself after. You got to be yourself, but we're all a blend of the people we listen to. We have to be real about that, especially early on. There's no roadmap on how to do this. So you model yourself after the people you admire and respect. So having somebody like Justin listen to my tape and then give me thoughts on how I could improve, that was so monumental early on in my journey. That meant so much to me. Ryan Rucco, you talk about confidence. Even though we all have that naivete early, the confidence stems from people actually with credibility telling you can do this. And Ryan was one of the first people to listen to my tape, probably my sophomore year in college. And he said, look, like, you're never finished product. You have a lot of work to do. But he said, I'm telling you, like, you have the talent. Any which direction you choose in this field, he said, you have the talent to achieve it. And that carried so much weight and probably was the inspiration towards I have to go at this full bore, because somebody I grew up idolizing is telling me I can do it. So people like that and their kindness went a real long way. And then it's not easy. So it's not like I'm saying it goes from point A of receiving that email to point B of doing X, Y, and Z job. But that's your foundational confidence of, if I stay at this, if I'm persistent about this and just persistent in getting better, maybe something will work out.
You mentioned a ton of great names there. And I love what you said about piecing little pieces of who you listen to and who you talk to over time to kind of form your own style. And I believe that in just life itself, for, let alone play-by-play, podcasting, whatever it be. It's almost like life is like a research paper. You're taking different sources, but at the end of the day, all these sources, little elements here and there, it still makes you. Like, it's still you at the end of the day. You're still the author of that term paper. So I do love that in terms of broadcasting. Now, I don't get the chance to, in fact, we've never had this opportunity to just do a one-on-one interview here on ESP. It's usually a 4-on-1 handicap match that goes live, so it gets a little crazy. But one of my co-hosts always loves to ask these questions, so I'm going to ask on behalf of him because he loves asking folks, who've been in the booth with legends in the game, if you have great stories with that person. So, of course, you've had the opportunity to work with the legendary Susan Waldman over the past couple of years. Do you have any great Susan Waldman stories over the last couple of years with being in the booth with her?
I mean, listless stories, but I don't. It's funny. Every day is so much fun with Susan, and I just find her not only to be a baseball encyclopedia, but to be hilarious, just in the way she will tell certain lighthearted stories. Like when we're talking about something that's not as serious, but a funny story from the past or a funny story about what she heard that present day. She's just so funny in the way she delivers it, which is why it's hard to pinpoint one. Every day is an experience and a journey with her and a fun one at that. But, I just go back to the memories, and this continues on to this day, but sitting in the booth with her and looking over to my right, and there's Susan. Like that's so crazy to me because that's somebody I grew up listening to and who's a literal legend in this business and trailblaze a path that no one ever would have thought possible when she started out. It's really the little tidbits of advice that she's offered me and the guidance and support that she's thrown in my direction unprompted. Like I would ask for it, but I haven't had to because she's been so generous with her time. That's a bad answer because you're looking for a funny, curtain pulled down type of story. But let's just say there are so many of them every single day where you walk in that booth and you never know what it is you're going to hear or how you're going to be enlightened walking out of that booth.
I mean, there's going to be so many stories too. As the more you spend time with her, Ford C. Frick Award winner, in my opinion. Whenever the first ballot of that comes out for Susan Waldman, she deserves that recognition. 100%.
Should have it already. Yeah, in my mind, it's just a slam dunk.
Yeah, absolutely. For those folks who are just joining us right now, we are here with Emmanuel Berbari, who has lent his voice to media conglomerates like Fox Sports and Audacy, WFAN, has been the voice of the Hudson Valley Renegades, is filling in for the New York Yankees, but also does the postgame for the Yankees as well on the Fan. Now, I just want to switch gears. We'll talk about the Yankees for a little bit. The team, 39-25 start, not coming off the best of weekends. You hate losing 2 out of 3 to Boston, especially this Boston team in 2025. But what's some takeaways from this current team? Do you think this American League East lead is sustainable for the Yankees this early in the year?
Definitely think it's sustainable. Now, you never like to lose a series at home to a team that you're better than, or at least you think you're better than. The Yankees, to me, are objectively better than the Boston Red Sox, especially in 2025. But I'm trying to hedge that point with it's June 8th, June 9th today. And you don't like to make any definitive statements in baseball. By the way, if you want a Susan quote, you don't make any definitive statements in baseball. It changes too quickly. You hear that from Susan 100%. All the time. It's one of the most important things I've learned from her. So this Yankee team is in a great spot. They had a rough weekend, especially from a pitching standpoint. I really liked, if you're taking any positive from the last 2 games where the series got away from them, this team is never out of a game. They pick themselves up off the mat very quickly. They fall behind by 4 runs. It could be 4 or 5 runs in the 5th or 6th inning. You always feel like they got a shot to make it interesting, if not win that baseball game. So I love that about this team. I like collectively all year how this is operating like a group that has a lot to prove and with chips on their shoulders. And a lot of this team was not on the field last October when the Dodgers eliminated them in the World Series in 5 games. So it's not like the chip on the shoulder comes directly from that, but that's part of the story. And look at these players and their individual backgrounds and some of the guys who are off to great starts this year, whether it's young guys who are looking to carve out a role or take that next step and prove themselves at the major league level. Yankees have plenty of that. Older guys, veterans who are trying to show that they're still either viable in this game or still star players in this game. So like a Paul Goldschmidt, for example, or a Cody Bellinger, for example. Aaron Judge doesn't have anything to prove in terms of being a superstar, but he wants to get back to the postseason and dominate. He really does. He wants to win a championship. He's purely motivated by winning. And the little adjustments he makes in his game every single year, it's admirable. It's up there with the greats, and it's why you're seeing him hit 390, 400, because that's not by accident. That's somebody who is making little tweaks in his game every year and already was superstar, behemoth, great, larger-than-life figure, but is never satisfied. You couple that with a pitching staff that I think has done more than we ever could have expected or hoped. The first couple of weeks of the year, they were struggling from a starting pitching standpoint. Carlos Carrasco made a couple good starts, but was mostly struggling. Marcus Stroman made 3 starts and really wasn't it, and then was hurt. So those were 2 spots in your rotation. Will Warren didn't get off to the best start either, and then he found his footing. Had that one rough one at Dodger Stadium, but overall has been much better. So those are 3 spots in your rotation. That's 3 spots that were not necessarily holding up their end of the bargain. Now, when you look at it, outside of yesterday where Carlos Rodon allowed a couple of big swings, got Rodon, Cy Young contender, Fried, Cy Young contender, Schmidt, we all trust him to keep you in a ball game. Warren has been much improved. And then Yarbrough, outside of this weekend, has been phenomenal. So look at that starting rotation and how much it's held up and held up weight. The bullpen, I think you're entering a phase of the season where it's been so good, but the Weaver injury, you're dealing with a depth problem where you got to use the same guys every day. So it's not a complaint about the bullpen. I'm just saying they're going to have to evaluate that come the trade deadline. Do we need an arm? Do we need one more arm? How do we want to deploy the bullpen? That'll be an interesting question. Jake Cousins might come back. So it'll just become a numbers game in terms of the bullpen. But this is a favorite in the American League. I think there's no doubt about it. I think the Yankees and Tigers are probably on a collision course if I had to game it right now. So much can change. But you love the makeup of this team, especially without Stanton having played a game, Heel having thrown a pitch, Garrett Cole's out for the year. Those are 3 huge names. And this team's in first place, 15 games over 500. And there's still a lot to be answered, but that's a good thing. This team has done everything I think it possibly can to put himself in a good spot.
Yeah, and you've sort of alluded to that. The Yankees have 3, at least 2 midseason acquisitions right there with Giancarlo Stanton and Luis Hill added to the mix. Maybe there could be a little bit more reinforcement with the bullpen, but the Yankees are in a good spot, and it's good. I always say it's also good to have these issues this early in the year where you have still a midseason deadline to address this. All this stuff kind of blew up in August, and you're kind of SOL, for lack of a better terms. So no, they're in a great spot right now.
They were riding so high. They had won 7 consecutive series before the Dodgers. 2 out of 3, and I like the way that they finished that road trip on a high note and made it 6-3 instead of 5-4. Didn't get swept out there, and Yarbrough with that dominant start on that Sunday night. But they were riding so high that I think it was important that series happened from a standpoint of, hey, they're not just going to coast here. And I'm not saying it's a good thing to lose series to elite teams. You never want that to happen. But I think these series could be a little bit of a blessing in disguise where, A, the team realizes, look, there's still a lot to prove. And I think they always realize that, but it just is added reinforcement. And then the front office is going to say, especially with the pitching struggles lately, at times, they're going to say, all right, where can we improve on the margins? I don't think you're going to see any move at the trade deadline this year, especially with Jazz moving to third full time. Everyone was wondering third base. Well, he's going to play third base. And DJ's been really good at second so far since coming back. There's going to be no earth-shattering move at the deadline, but could we see a pitching move or 2 that could really change this season? Yeah, because moves on the margins like that really do make a difference at the end. And I think these couple series in particular could be fuel and ammunition for how the front office evaluates his team.
Emmanuel Berbari with us here at the plate. A couple final questions. I'll wrap the Yankees up with this one here. One date I love to circle on my baseball calendar is the All-Star game, this time resonating in Atlanta. Aaron Judge, Max Fried, virtual locks to send to Truist Park. But it was up to you. If there was a dark horse All-Star that you would also send to the All-Star game, who would you send to Truist?
Good question, because I haven't put too much thought into the All-Star game, and it's creeping closer, and the Yankees have several good candidates. I would And Aaron Boone's managing the team this
Yeah.
year, right? Yeah, because they were in the World Series last year. Maybe we'll have a couple extra Yankees if there are reserve spots because you got Aaron Boone as the manager putting together the roster collectively. Let me think. If I had a dark horse, I think Carlos Rodon deserves to go. I'm not sure if that's a dark horse, but he deserves to go. I think he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, not just the American League. And his ERA over the 9-start stretch before yesterday had a 9-start stretch, which was the best of his career, a 1.27 ERA. He was ridiculous. And he, beyond that, has not allowed hits this year. Like he has been the best in baseball at just preventing any sort of damage. Now, his hits have been early in the year before he went on that stretch, home runs, like last night, where the worst Rodon starts have been 5 innings, 3 hits, 2 of them leave the ballpark. But he is literally the best in the sport at preventing the opposition from getting a base hit. You know, his batting average against is the best in the sport. I think he should be an all-star. He has been everything the Yankees have signed and then some, a refined version of what they signed because he has more pitches now. He has more ways to beat you. I would say Luke Weaver was a lock before the injury. I wonder if there's still a way based on the severity and when he gets back. If he could still get there. I'm not sure how that works with sample size now.
I think I've seen this before, though. There are players who got taken out well before the All-Star game, but you cannot deny the numbers.
Like,
for those first couple months. I think he deserves to get in.
Yeah, what has he got? Sub-1 ERA. Like, he deserves to get in. Unless his sample size because of the injury by July is so far behind people. I can't see that being the case because he had such a good sample size. I think he should be in there, but that wouldn't be a dark horse. That to me would be more obvious. Rodon should get in. I mean, how about Paul Goldschmidt at first base?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Paul Goldschmidt at first base has been phenomenal, and I don't have all the first base candidates in front of me, but I'm hard pressed to find a guy who's hitting 320 and playing a Gold Glove caliber first base for a World Series contender. So I'd put Goldschmidt in there.
Yeah, I would have to look into the deeper stats. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is obviously going to pop up when I think of American League first baseman. Vinny Pasquantino, I think, has been on a hotter stretch, but he was off to like a slow start to begin the year. But yeah, it's a Paul Goldschmidt. It actually might not be a contest. Paul Goldschmidt might be your starter at the All-Star game at first base, which is ridiculous at his age, the stage of his career.
Yeah, you got. I'm looking now. He's hitting 312. Yeah, maybe the power isn't as big as some of those guys, but he's playing. I think you look at the overall package with Goldschmidt, and he has. The good thing about Goldschmidt is he's been an MVP, he's been a Gold Glover, he's been an All-Star, he's a future Hall of Famer in my book. He has a name rec. So in a fan voting environment, he's not only a Yankee, but that's Paul Goldschmidt. Everybody knows who he is. So that could help him when it comes to starting the game.
Well, we'll see. We're only 36 days away from the All-Star festivities. I mean, we're already at the halfway point of the year, Emmanuel. It's crazy to think about. By the way, folks, if you're on social media, Instagram and X, make sure to give Emmanuel a follow as well. Follow him at Berbari on Air on Instagram and X. We're going to throw in our ticker below for you guys to make sure to give him a follow. Now, Emmanuel, we're going to get you out of here. By the way, first of all, thank you so much for your time today. Really do appreciate it. It's been an honor. Would have loved to have had my 3 other colleagues, Joe, Corey, and Tom over at ESB here. But we'd love to have you back for a future episode down the line where, the other guys can get involved. So my final question, it's one I love to ask to anybody who's in the industry, doing content creation or doing exactly what you're doing with WFAN, SNY, Fox Sports. What's the best advice you can give somebody who's chasing those dreams that you chase, but maybe have reached a crossroads of, I don't know if I should be pursuing this anymore?
Yeah, I like that last part because a lot of people will get into that mode of, can I do this and can I continue to do this? And my advice would be, the only way you can't is if you stop. Yeah, people will give up on their dream, and I understand for good reasons. Like, you have different goals and aspirations for your life. You want to lay down roots. I understand why somebody would have the desire to pivot, but if it's really something you want to do, and you only get one shot at this life, so the only way the dream stops is if you stop. And I think there are ways to put yourself out there nowadays that never used to exist. We're in such an interesting world where now there's no excuse not to generate content. to get yourself out there. And there's no excuse not to reach out to somebody either. Like everybody, for better or worse, like I understand people don't like their phone numbers and addresses being out there online at times, but they're out there. Typically they are. So I'm not saying show up at somebody's door. That would be a little creepy, but I'm saying there's no excuse not to take their email offline and email them. Like it's all out there. So if you want to get to know people in a non-abrasive way and strike up genuine relationships, and people are generally good people in this world and even in this business, like there are a lot of great people. They're going to want to help you. So I would just encourage anybody who's at a crossroads or even just starting out, even not at a crossroads, and they're just dreaming those big dreams, like people like you and I, going into high school wanting to talk sports. I would encourage them. There's no excuse not to. There's no excuse not to get in touch with the right people. There's no excuse not to pour everything you've got into making this a reality, because there are so many different ways to do it nowadays. There are more jobs than ever. There really are, with online and with the ability to be your own creator. Yeah, there are more jobs than ever. And I think the dream only stops if you stop that dream from happening, because you are the last say. You are. And the second you decide to quit, that next second could be the moment of your break or the big opportunity or one opportunity that leads to another. Like that split second could be the one. And I would just encourage anybody to keep going.
That's a beautiful piece of advice. And if anything, all else fails, just wake up a little bit earlier and get yourself a nice coffee and get yourself going from that point on.
Hey, no excuse to stop grinding either, because we have our coffee every single day.
There you go. Sure. Literally stop. Never stop grinding. Emmanuel, thank you so much for your time. We would love to have you back for a future episode of ESP.
Yeah, and I want to meet your two colleagues as well. So future, mark it down. We'll make this happen again.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Appreciate it.